Back in April 2023, I premiered my 1-hour documentary, The Making of the New Yardbirds. It covered the origins of Led Zeppelin, the bandmates' childhood, the origin of the Zeppelin last name, Peter Grant's early day career evolution, the British music scene of the 60s, and more. The episode takes you up from 1863, yes, 1863, the 19th century, up to September 1968, as the New Yardbirds prepared to take on the world. I recommend you watch this episode for context. So as you know, I've worked on the making of Zeppelin albums for most of the group's discography. With the exciting news of Becoming Led Zeppelin hitting movie theaters in 2025, I feel the time is right to provide a deep dive investigative adventure that works as a complementary piece to the feature film, taking you even further into the story. First time I heard a song from Zeppelin's first album was in 1998, at age 11. The movie was Small Soldiers, and there was a scene where this happened.
Let's do something fun!
I didn't know who the band was, but the song stuck. It would be 3 long years before I discovered their catalog as a sophomore in high school, back in 2001, getting my hands on Led Zeppelin 3 and 2, in that particular order. My mom, a rock and roll fan herself, who narrows every Zeppelin history lesson down to Robert Plant being very handsome, won a small lottery prize, and she was generous enough to give me some money so I could get myself another Zeppelin record. We went to a downtown department store, and there they were, a bunch of 1994 George Marino remastered CD titles to choose from. I went with their debut based on my curiosity to understand Chapter 1 of their greatness. Going for Untitled or Houses of the Holy felt like cheating the Zeppelin timeline, and also when you're a teenager, that black and white album cover reads destruction. So I bought it and went home to sit down through all 9 tracks. Expectations high. I asked myself, could this top Zeppelin 2 and 3? My first impression was something I'll never forget. Good Times, Bad Times was the sound of a hero's journey. And once again, Zeppelin blew my mind, but this time, in sonic places, the other 2 albums didn't. The mix was a crystal clear attack. How was this possible, I thought? Every track a marvelous treat to the senses, every instrument in 3D vision, and underneath it all, a sinister level of confidence from a band whose back cover photograph reads ingenuity and a killer instinct for arrangements and performance. Their eyes spoke of telepathy and skill. They were born ready. Where Zeppelin 2 sounded like a touring band, and 3 an open door into multifaceted ambition, Zeppelin 1 felt like a club of dangerous individuals whose identity feels mysterious, almost as if they came out of nowhere, like rebels with a cause, to shake the Earth's core with stuntman dynamics, primal energy, and swagger. The album is not without its controversy, with legions of haters who criticize half the tracks being covers, borrowing from other sources. It's the poster child for many allegations that as a Zeppelin fan, you learn to fight back and shut down the naysayers with facts. And yet every critic out there always misses the greatest contribution this record made to rock and roll: production, arrangements, and changing the way musicians dealt with record labels. A power shift where music served musicians first. Lennon said you want a revolution, well, Page started one. No rock and roll album sounded like this in the highly competitive year of 1969. I repeat, nobody could translate their power on vinyl like Led Zeppelin managed to. A debut album that is quite possibly the best sounding starting piece by any classic rock band of the 60s and early 70s. Not only did it have great sounding guitars, it had great sounding everything. Where many groups took a couple of albums to get it right, Zeppelin wasted no time. Their first album represented a turning point for youth, leaving behind the exhausted hippie trails, walking into the deepest waters of pleasure, excess, and expression. This is a story of John Bonham, John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and guitar scientist James Patrick Page, who took note of everything his competitors did right and raised the studio stakes where most technicians failed to capture lightning in a bottle. From a member of a dying Yardbirds unit to an explosive musical statement, it marked the emergence of Jimmy Page as producer, who elevated rock and roll, the musician's craft, and the art of drum recording. Page was the sole guitarist of his generation to self-finance a groundbreaking record while setting a milestone no other band had achieved from the start, keeping their publishing rights, protecting their business, and turning the tables of music contracts, shifting from a historically beggar-like position to one of choosers. This is the anatomy of an atomic bomb with a 44-minute 45-second running time, 9 songs, 1 vision. 4 of the most gifted rock and roll musicians in history, led by a Dragon Telecaster architect with perfect music business timing. The adrenaline shot to the British invasion, the new Yardbirds invasion, a record I have 9 copies of, a 2014 single vinyl, 2014 triple vinyl, 1972 Argentinian pressing, 1 cassette copy, 1980s Barry Diamond master, 1984 George Marino master, 2008 Japanese super high material CD, 2014 single CD, and 2014 2 CD set. This is the making of Led Zeppelin. It's January 1968. Jimmy Page was 24 years old and had been on the British music scene for 6 years. A member of the Yardbirds since 1966, was learning many valuable lessons. Their 1967 concert schedule alone saw them play 107 shows around the world: North America, Australia, Europe, and Singapore of all places. Page recorded his first and only studio album with them, Little Games. It was produced by Mickey Most, who shared a longtime friendship with the band's new manager since Christmas 1966, Peter Grant. Also on the album was a guest spot by one of Britain's finest bass players, John Paul Jones, credited on Goodnight Sweet Josephine and No Excess Baggage. Jones was 22 and his New Year plans began with a recording of the Graham Goldman Thing at Olympic Studios London with rock and roll engineer Eddie Kramer. Jones got arranging credits on the album. Parallel to this, he worked as bassist, arranger, and conductor for Dusty Springfield's 4th album, Dusty Definitely. The Band of Joy entered their final concert year with a 22-date UK tour promoting their singles, but the money wasn't coming in. These photographs from January 1968, taken at Holland Park School in Kensington, capture both 19-year-olds John Bonham and Robert Plant on their quest for success and gas money, hustling their way through the underground scene and dealing with occasional arguments like brothers in a love and hate relationship. They just wanted to make it in the music business. It was a band of struggle. The Yardbirds kept themselves busy January through March, playing 10 UK dates including BBC sessions in early March, followed by a live performance on French TV. Their setlist at the time included numbers such as Train Kept It Rollin', Dazed and Confused, and Jimmy's personal showcase, White Summer. Page added another studio credit recording guitars for Joe Cocker's debut that same month, including a reimagined version of the Beatles with little help from my friends. Jimmy played the iconic guitar parts throughout the song. Yardbirds' tensions grew with drummer Jim McCarty and singer Keith Relf sharing their desires to quit the band, moving into a different musical direction in the style of the Turtles' Happy Together. A breakup felt imminent for a band that both Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck left for blues rock endeavors, although Beck said he was fired.
Because they kicked me out. They did. That's right. Them.
Despite running somewhat directionless, the Yardbirds 1968 remained a very powerful live band that could jam into psychedelia as well as playing the blues. This solidified the name Jimmy Page as a growing stage hero, perfecting his craft in theatrics with an army of guitars. His Black Beauty Gibson Les Paul, one Dan electro guitar, a 12-string Vox Phantom, and his main axe, a dragon-themed 1959 Fender Telecaster whose appearance had changed since 1967, packed with a Sola tone bender, a Vox wah pedal, and crunch-inducing Fender and Vox amplification. Page's intention was clear. Red velvet pants on, he looked the part, he was the part. All he needed was a second big break past joining the Yardbirds. Whatever future days may bring, Jimmy was in the same spot as, say, Keith Emerson with the Nice. They already looked like stars. They just had to wait for a lineup change, for variations on a theme. The Yardbirds embarked on their 8th and final US tour on March 28, 1968. A 38-date concert run would be the last hurrah for Yardbirds fans. Joe Perry, Alice Cooper, Ronnie Montrose, and Tom Petty were amongst attendees, and their opinion is unanimous. They were greatly influenced by the Yardbirds. Many venue names here would be familiar in Led Zeppelin trails: the 3 Image Club, Boston Tea Party, Grande Ballroom, and the Fillmore Auditorium, San Francisco. Their average 10-song setlist became Page's blueprint as he saw into the future, while the late 60s spirit was to shock his world soon. The concert style of the 68 Yardbirds was released on a 1971 LP that was soon taken off the market, but was finally available in 2017. Checking out this March 30th Anderson Theater, New York recording is a must. Now here are some portions from the bootlegs. The Yardbirds' last US tour was more than just performing on stage. It brought many questions to the table, and manager Peter Grant could see the recognition Page got in the States from music business names who were already impressed by his extensive session work. The Yardbirds turned a one studio musician into a visible character on stage. Where Eric Clapton had Cream and Jimi Hendrix was the new electric guitar king, Jimmy Page waited for his turn away from hit factory rules imposed on the Yardbirds chasing single success. Like most upcoming peers of his generation, Jimmy wanted to do what the Beatles did after 1966, albums, away from top 40 radio impositions, focused on the music first and foremost. The Yardbirds' final US dates were played in Alabama at the Montgomery International Speedway on June 4th and 5th, 1968. A Go magazine story was released just 16 days later, confirming the Yardbirds split, with Jimmy Page and bassist Chris Dredja carrying on without Keith Relf and Jim McCarty. Jimmy said the band decided their US tour of 1968 would be their last. He also stated the need to fill out the new Yardbirds slots with a couple of singers and drummers he had in mind. Interesting to note, Page stated he'd like to add a mellotron for instrumentation and, quote, wants his new singer to play keyboards for a new sort of collage of sounds that was not usually found in a rock and roll group. It was still a long way to the Rain song, but Jumple Jones was in close proximity. Keeping the Yardbirds afloat was a great idea, and to an extent, it was Jimmy's best bet. Let me explain. If we take a look at his options, had the band stopped for good, well, Page was in a tough spot considering the market and a group that could carry a musician with his experience. Pink Floyd welcomed David Gilmour after replacing Syd Barrett in February. The Rolling Stones had no open positions, still a year away from adding Mick Taylor. The nicest guitarist, David Oldest, was no longer a part of the band by the summer of '68, but Keith Emerson and his friends became a trio. The Who were good as a four-piece, and Cream would break up by the end of the year. Now, even if Page was offered a replacement part, we can speculate he learned the lessons from the Yardbirds. While he kind of stepped in Clapton and Jeff Beck's shoes with ease, coming into a project had its own set of difficulties, never mind limited freedom to do your own thing. So what about Page starting a new band from scratch? There were no openings on the new wave of Britain's most promising names, and everybody worth considering seemed to be taken. Deep Purple's Mark I recorded their first album in May. Black Sabbath was in their early incarnation as Earth. King Crimson slowly built from the ground up, and personnel within reach. Free played their first show in April, while Yes already had guitarist Peter Banks. Jimmy Page had the Yardbirds platform and word-of-mouth publicity in various countries, including the precious American market. The band played their last ever show at Luton College of Technology on July 7, 1968, the same day as Led Zeppelin's final performance 12 years later. Two Yardbirds members exiting the band was one of the greatest contributions to rock and roll history. What followed was more than luck, but the alignment of planets. No other British guitarists at the time had such a business proposition. The both lucrative and uncertain Yardbirds name, manager Peter Grant, tour manager Richard Cole, and pending concert dates for late 1968. Page tried to get Steve Marriott, but someone in Marriott's camp allegedly said they would break his fingers if this happened. Jimmy then went for acclaimed songwriter Terry Super Longs Reid, but Terry was busy and signed a contract with Peter Grant's buddy, Mickey Most. But he recalled a singer that impressed him on a shared bill concert. He gave Jimmy a name, Robert Plant. Up in the Black Country, there was no more Band of Joy as of May 1968, and Robert Plant's music path was not promising. He tried a solo career, and 2 singles released via CBS took him nowhere. It was hot on for nowhere, with Plant earning his living laying tarmac on the roads while getting a nickname from the staff, the pop singer. He got an offer to join another band by the name of Ops Tweedle with yet another Bonham, but this time it wasn't John, but organ player Bill Bonham. Plant moved into the 3 Men in a Boathouse on Stephenson Avenue, located in the Beechdale State suburb of Walsall, where the band rehearsed as well. Ops Tweedle were scheduled to perform many shows between June and July of 1968. John Bonham took a job offer backing up American singer-songwriter Tim Rose, whose career rose to the occasion, getting enough traction thanks to his version of Hey Joe and Morning Dew. Bonham came in as a drummer in June. Tim Rose had a very busy schedule ahead of him, with a long list of shows, included a coveted marquee show scheduled for the 16th. July 1968 changed the course of Jimmy Page's life forever, and with it, the Yardbirds' fate into rebranding beyond their wildest dreams. Peter Grant owned the rights to the Yardbirds name. Touring plans were not going to stop just because they were finding replacement personnel. The big rock and roll news at the time was, of course, Iron Butterfly's second studio album, with its title track Inagata da Vida pushing the record all the way up to the top sellers that year. Atlantic Records was happy and on the lookout for more unsigned talent. It was halfway through 1968, and there were plenty of music releases with Jimmy Page looking for inspiration and great production values.
Lemons, Franken.
Page went with singer Terry Reid's recommendation and made the arrangements to go see Robert Plant. Ops Tweedle play the West Midlands along Peter Grant and Yardbirds bass player Chris Dreja. The day was July 20th, 1968, just 3 days after the Beatles' Yellow Submarine premiere Deep Purple releasing their first album, and the same day the Doors played Honolulu, Hawaii. England saw rock history being made that day. The West Midlands College of Education, or Walsall's Teachers Training College, was established in 1963 near Birmingham. Bachelor degrees were offered since 1964 in several disciplines including music and economics. Prince Philip paid a visit in May 1968, and the Zombies of hit single Time of the Season played there in 1967. Upon arrival, Page and the Yardbirds crew thought Robert Plant was a roadie, and the hall was mostly empty with limited applause between the numbers. When they heard Robert Plant sing, Jimmy found the voice he was looking for, and best of all, a voice that remained undiscovered by big business. They exchanged a quick word after the show, and that was it. Several telegrams were later sent, but Robert didn't reply up front as he thought somebody was pulling his leg. It seemed too good to be true, and he had been an occasional blues singer guest to Alexis Corner. So Robert went back to his pavement day job until he reached out and a meeting with Page took place at Jimmy's pain-worn West Berkshire home by the river. A contrast of dreams. Plant was broke while Page enjoyed his session and Yardbird's success. Their meeting proved vital to their future endeavors, sharing similar music tastes. This partnership can be compared to that of Paco de Lucia and Camarón de la Isla. Different backgrounds with a deep understanding of the roots that change a genre of music forever. Robert checked out one of Page's records, 1962's Joan Baez in concert. Track 1 became their starting point and working ground. Fun fact, check out track 5 from this same album, What Have They Done to the Rain. You can tell it inspired Plant's lyrics on Led Zeppelin's The Rain song. Chris Dreja left the Yardbirds to pursue photography. It was the second greatest gift for Page after Dreja moved from rhythm guitar to bass in 1966, making room for Jimmy to change his destiny. Cue multi-instrumentalist John Paul Jones coming into the Yardbirds picture. He reached out to Page some days before, letting know on his availability for the Yardbirds reformation based on that June 1968 piece. We have to thank Jonesy's wife Maureen for telling her husband to pick up the phone and talk to Jimmy. Now there's also the fact all the other bands were taken. Jonesy seemed to be confined to a profitable but kind of boring session musician career for the rest of the 60s and the 70s. The Who had the Ox, the Beatles had Paul, Yes had Chris Squire, the list goes on. The Yardbirds was Jones's best shot at escaping the faceless world of virtuoso studio cats. The timing for this was interesting though, as Jeff Beck's debut Truth was released on July 29th, featuring a long list of credits including John Paul Jones on 4 songs and Jimmy Page on 12-string electric guitar for the famous Beck's Bolero, a track that also featured Keith Moon on drums. Back in 1967, when the session for Beck's Bolero took place, plans for a supergroup were discussed. Moon said the whole thing would go down like a lead balloon or a Led Zeppelin. Page took note and the name stuck. The question remained, when would he use it? Page and Jones met again for No Introduction Necessary, a session musician supergroup album recorded in late 1967. Page and him can be heard on 6 tracks with Clem Cattany on drums, who was also considered for the new Yardbirds, but like another candidate, Ainsley Dunbar, they wouldn't let go of studio work and gigs that easy over the risk of joining a group from the past. Plant hurried to tell his friend John Bonham about working with the Yardbirds. He insisted on Bonham joining, but the drummer had a family to support. Tim Rose was paying him £40 a week, and he was getting offers from various names in the business, including Joe Cocker, who played Sound 68 at the prestigious Royal Albert Hall. Bonham had a good opinion about the Yardbirds, but at the same time thought they were done. And technically they were. Can't blame him for looking out for job security, as opposed to gamble his future with the possibility of reviving the sounds of Shapes of Things and other hit single tracks. Page went to see John Bonham in person at a Tim Rose show at the Country Club in Hampstead, North London. The day was July 31st, just 11 days after discovering Robert Plant and 1 day after Buffalo Springfield released their final studio album, Last Time Around. Jimmy Page couldn't believe the sound coming out of Bonham's drums. A superhuman, a drummer to end all drumming battles. The sound of success. Yes, Page considered Procol Harum's B.J. Wilson, but that plan was forgotten the minute Bonham attacked his drums, which Page heard on the Band of Joy demos provided by Robert. Now, it wasn't the first time Page and Bonham crossed paths, technically speaking. Donovan's album The Hurdy-Gurdy Man credited these names on the title track, which was recorded around April 1968. In a world of rapid studio sessions, it's quite possible they recorded their parts separately. Oh yeah, and check out the other guitarist here, a man by the name of Alan Holsworth. Jimmy Page couldn't wait to get a hold of Peter Grant, who was in America helping out the Jeff Beck group on their first US tour, which took the States by storm. Great album reviews for Truth and show-stealing sets made Beck's name a strong contender in the electric guitar world. There was just one problem. American record executives didn't really like Rod Stewart's voice, and it was a hard sell. But Jimmy Page's new lineup looked the opposite. They just needed to get John Bonham. Peter Grant sent hundreds of telegrams to Robert Plant's 3 Men in a Boat address, but these didn't work. Patience was their ally, trying to locate one of the greatest drummers of all time. Bonham wasn't playing hard to get, he was just busy and the money had to be good. Yes, he thought Jimmy and Robert had great chops, but it wasn't personal, just business. According to Peter Grant's book, Bringing It Home, an offer was made. John Bonham would get £50 plus another $50 if he drove the van when needed. Bye-bye Tim Rose, hello Yardbirds. John Bonham was technically the only salaried member of Led Zeppelin for the first 2 years. August 1968, Cream had just released Wheels of Fire with soon-to-be hit singles White Room and Crossroads. Pink Floyd took some days off in the last part of their US tour after Sacramento. Hendrix and the Experience played Curtis Hickson Hall in Tampa with opening act Soft Machine. The Who was 10 days away from finishing the sellout tour of North America. 3 nights at the Fillmore confirmed their legendary status, while progressive rock band Yes was 5 shows into their career, including 2 nights at the prestigious Marquee Club. Some 3 blocks away, history was in the making with the new Yardbirds' first ever rehearsal. Rumor has it, it took place on August 12th or 19th, 1968, at 2 possible locations. A basement on 27 Lyle Street or 39 Gerrard Street at yet another basement where the Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club was located. The Yardbirds' confidence was high, with arrangements signed in advance, dated August 15th for a tour of Scandinavia in September. As you can see, payment was set at 7,000 Danish krone, something like $930 in 1968. It was quite a contrast to Yes getting paid 32 quid or $76 in London. The new Yardbirds didn't waste time and headed out to the studio, more specifically Olympic Studios London. It was the 4th week of August and a chance at earning some precious session cash. They didn't record their own material, but American singer PJ Proby trying to maintain a troubled career afloat. The album was 3 Week Hero and it wouldn't be released until 1969. This is the first recording session with all future Zeppelin bandmates on tape. Everybody including Joe Cocker played the Marquee London in August 1968, but soon, the Yardbirds would make their new lineup debut. By the first week of September, the band was ready to catch a plane at Heathrow Airport, and with it, slowly changed their luck into fortune. On the next episode of The Making of Led Zeppelin 1, the new Yardbirds embark on their first ever tour of Scandinavia. Expectations, concerts, and much practice prepare them for what followed, recording their debut at Olympic Studios in just 36 hours. Stay tuned for episode 2, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.